Hello everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel. It is week 5 of our seasonal Biscornu Sal 2024. Thank you guys for making my Flossiversary Sal such a resounding success. Thank you for your excitement and thank you for stitching along. So today I am going to be sharing step by step how to put together your Biscornu. If you have always wanted to know, I hope you find this video helpful. It is a long video today, but I will speed up a little bit of the stitching part just to save us a little bit of time. However, I really wanted to make sure that the video shows step by step exactly how I put together the Biscornu, and I hope that you find it a useful tutorial. And again, thank you so much for joining me. One thing I want to note, the tutorial will actually show the creation of the autumn Biscornu. All of the Biscornus are put together the same. So even if you stitched the summer basket, or you stitched the spring basket, or you stitched the winter basket, the steps are going to be the same. And that goes for the size. So 32 is what I did here in the video tutorial. Obviously, 40 is tinier. That was put together the exact same way. I hope that you love the video. Thank you guys so much. And without further ado, here is the tutorial. Okay, so the first thing you want to do after you're done stitching, which I have my front piece, and this is going to be, or the top piece, pardon, and this is going to be the bottom, which you'll notice I just copied elements from this onto this, but I only did these corners, and you'll see why here in a minute. The other thing I want to note is that I stitched my border three stitches away from the outer edge. So my border measures 73. So this is 73 stitches by 73 stitches. And this is a back stitch line all the way around. This is completely, and you do have to have this outer border in order to put your Biscornu together, hand stitched. This is optional. You'll notice that there are little notches at the midway point all the way around. The midway point is at 37. So this should be 36, this should be 36, and then this last little stitch here is the midway point. So on the 37th stitch, I just stitched a little notch out because that is going to help me line this up when we go to stitch these together. So the first thing we want to go do is go over and iron this really well. I'm going to go iron it and I'll be right back. Okay, once we have our front, or top and bottom, I need to call them top and bottom, all pressed really well, we need to trim about 1/4 of an inch from our outer line, because we don't want all of this extra inside. And I did give myself plenty. Probably don't need that much. One thing I want to note that I did when I was stitching, see that little teeny tiny stitch? It's just a single stitch up here. I did that so that when I was stitching this top panel, which is the autumn triple play basket, this is the top. So I knew that way I didn't get myself twisted, because it's very easy to do. It's not going to matter when we go to put this together, but when I was stitching, in order to make sure my stitches all went the same direction, I wanted to know this was the top. And I did that right when I started, because I started it and then I was super afraid that I would come back to it the next time I sat down to stitch and that it would get all mixed up. So that just was my little, you could even write up here if you wanted to, top or something with a pen. But that was how I let myself know that. So let's go ahead and trim this about 1/4 of an inch. And I like to use my rotary cutter for this step. So I'm just lining it up right with my outer stitch line there. And we're just going to remove all of this excess. We're going to do this on both pieces, and it's going to give us a much more manageable piece. Now, when you're making this Biscornu, you want to make sure they're the same size. So if I would have used a different fabric for the bottom than I used for the top, like a different color, you would want to make sure that it's the same count. This is 32 count flax, I believe, linen by Zweigart. And you would want to make sure you used another 32 count fabric so that it lines up. And that's a really fun look as well. I use the same fabric on both, but that's just another idea. There's lots of ways to create really fun Biscornu designs. Okay, now that we have our top and bottom trimmed down, we want to iron some fusible interfacing on the back because that's going to protect our stitches. I'm going to be filling mine with crushed walnut shells, and I definitely don't want that to come through. I don't want it to damage my stitches, so you're going to want to protect your stitches with some fusible interfacing. My preference is the, I don't know if that's going to show or if it'll be too close, Pellon 911FF. So I buy it in a bolt because I use a lot of this. But what you want to do first before we get our interfacing is you want to measure from just inside of the line to just inside of the line. So I'm just going to put my ruler down here, and it looks like we kind of have like what, 4 and 3/8. And then you want to go ahead and measure the other directions because it may not be exactly square. It should be, but just in case. And yes, 4 3/8. Okay, so that is what that one is going to measure. I need a 4 3/8 square. And same here. Looks like I stitched this pretty even. And same. Okay, so we need 2 4 3/8 inch squares. So I am going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I am just going to clean up this raw edge where I very messily cut it at some point. And we're going to cut it at 4 3/8, exactly what we need, and then we'll cut it down. All right, so we have our little bit of trash. I don't need my big ruler anymore. Oh yeah, I probably do. I lied. Okay, so now we need to just trim this a little bit. And we'll just save that scrap. Okay, so next I am going to just run this over to the iron, or I'm going to bring the iron here probably. and we want to iron our lightweight fusible interfacing right inside that stitch line. We don't want to go over the stitch line because that's going to make it hard to pick. It'll just make it hard for assembly. So you want it right inside. So you'll notice it may not go quite up to the line, but almost. That's what we're looking for, just not over the line. So when I was measuring from right inside to right inside, and I want to double check that before I iron it down that it fits right inside of my backstitch line on both the top and bottom piece. So now we're going to iron it. And again, I like to just do the press and lift. I don't want to go back and forth. I'll go back and if I think it's not attached anywhere. But this is very much like when I did, well, I even have it right here, the key fob. We're doing the same thing. So let's do this one now. Okay, so now we have our top and bottom all pressed with interfacing. Okay, so now we need to make a decision on our floss. I used 38.53 for my backstitch line. If I want my backstitch line to remain the orange, I will want to use the 38.53 to stitch this, or if I want it to kind of be a fun contrast, I can pick one of the other colors. So really you just kind of look at it and see if you want to use one of these. I'm almost thinking brown or green. Kind of like the green. I think we're going to use 732, and I want to grab 2 strands. I use 2 strands to do my back stitch. I want to do 2 strands to sew the 2 halves together. So we're just going to grab our 2 strands. We're going to thread up our needle, and we want to knot the end. And you do, normally, yes, we don't really knot in our cross stitch very often, but in this case it's going to be inside and you're never going to see it. Now it doesn't matter if you pick the top or the bottom for this. I like to start kind of close to the corner, but maybe not right at it. But in this little bit of selvage here, we are going to anchor our piece. So I'm just kind of, actually I like to go away from where I'm going to start. Because I don't really want that knot right in the corner, and then I'm just going to kind of come back just to get it anchored really well. Okay. The other thing that is helpful is to finger press. Probably should have done this before I started that. But we're going to go right along our back stitch line and we're just going to finger press this. So that just means that we're folding it right at our back stitch and we're just going to press like so. And along this side too. And then let's do this. We're going to do this on both pieces. Now, if you wanted to make this just a little pillow, I'm going to mention this right off the bat. Obviously, I'm going to make the Biscornu, and that's what I'm teaching. You could sew this as a little pillow. So this is an idea for everyone who doesn't sew. When you're making a little pillow, you would do basically what I'm doing, except you're going to sew them together just like this. You're going to basically like I did my scissor fob, and I will link that video right here. But you're going to do it with these much bigger pieces, and you're going to catch your back stitch line and sew this together, and it will make a pillow. So that, if for anyone who doesn't like to sew with a sewing machine, that is an idea for that. For the Biscornu, this is the starting point is, I don't want to say the trickiest part. I don't think it's tricky, but you definitely want to take your time with this step. We are going to line up the corner of the top, or it could be the bottom, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do the top with the middle of this piece where we have that little notch. That is where we are lining these up. These stitches, and it's very important that you exactly get those stitches together. So if you need to, you can use some Clover Wonder Clips, but I'm in this side of the top piece, I am going to just catch my stitches, not the linen, and I'm going to come up through here, and I'm going to catch the other side. Actually, I lied. Yeah, no, that's right. So I've caught that one. And then we're going to come, hold please. Let me come back through. We're going to come up, and we're going to catch that stitch, and we want to make sure then we're going to come back through to the other side to make sure that's lined up, and then we're going to make sure we're going through the stitch right next to it at the same time. So we're catching the next stitch. And you want to make sure you're doing the same direction, so I'm kind of coming from the bottom piece into the top piece. And it will take a few stitches for it, and you want to go through every single one. It will take a few stitches for it to look good and for it to catch. But once you master making sure you're going through every single one, and you don't want it to catch the linen, you want to catch the stitching only, like this rolled over a little bit, so we're just going to kind of manipulate it with your fingers. And we're just doing the same direction. And we're going to stitch to that first corner in real time before that first turn, which will be right here. So you can watch that, and then I will leave all of the stitching in, but I am going to speed it up. because it does take a minute. Okay, I feel like, is there a knot in here? Maybe I got it. And the most important thing here is taking your time. Making sure that you are lining up the stitches. Once you have done this a couple times, it almost becomes second nature. And it's quite addictive. And this is a project then that is completely done by hand. So no sewing machine required at all. And I do have to manipulate it. It really does take almost to that first turn, and then your fabric almost learns, I guess, if you will, what you're wanting it to do. And you're pulling those stitches together. And this is where you're going to get that nice contrast. Like I feel like I'm grabbing the linen and I just want to grab those stitches. Take a look and see how it's looking. And don't get too hung up. I mean, you want it to look good, but I promise that kind of as you go, I almost feel like it just starts looking better as you go. So let's get stitched down here to the turn, and I'll show you how we do that corner. Now, I will say, if you find that you get off somewhere and you're pretty close to where you started, I would start over. I would pull it out and start over. If you are pretty far into stitching your Biscornu together, I would probably make that call at that point and maybe just try to fix it. You'll probably never see the mistake or the error there. Oh man. And just take your time. Catching all of your stitches. I usually pinch it together, but I'm going to try folding it out like this with my finger underneath. There we go. I was having a hard time grabbing all of those. It generally is fantastic if you can get all the way around with one length of floss. I do not know if I'm going to be able to or not. I also do not like to work with a super long length because then I just end up tangling it. So it's really up to you. I will show you, depending on where we fall here, if I have to knot it off or tie it off in the back and start again. It's basically the same thing. So we'll we're almost to the corner, and see how I feel like I'm starting to get into a rhythm. Once you get enough of these stitches together or stitched, excuse me, I feel like it becomes so much easier. Your fabric almost is going towards each other, those stitches. Now we're going to get to the corner and it'll be a trick again. So we're coming up to the corner and we are going to grab and then just going to set my needle down for just a second. You just kind of want to, we finger pressed this earlier, which does help. We're going to make that turn. So see how I'm just kind of folding it in. And we want to do the same thing here. We want to make sure we're grabbing right at that corner, the very next stitch on both halves. And pulling tight. And then we're going to just kind of do this. And now we're going to stitch right here.
Okay, we're coming to the end now. Remember that you can slow down the video at any time by clicking the gear on YouTube and simply slowing it down to watch it in a little bit more real time. I wanted to include all of the stitching around the Biscornu, even though it's time consuming. I could have cut a lot of this out, but hopefully it helps you and keeps you entertained while you're stitching yours together or doing some other stitching. You can see that as you get further along around the Biscornu shape, it does become much easier. Now, as we come to that last turn where we're leaving a little spot open, this is where we will fill our Biscornu. I am filling mine with crushed walnut shells, but you can fill it with polyester fiber fill, poly pellets, lizard litter. That is completely up to you, and that is your choice with this. I will leave approximately an inch opening. That's generally what I like to leave. But you can leave that whole side open if you want to. I leave enough room for my funnel to get to, be stuck down inside of the Biscornu, and that's about it. So I would say about an inch opening. But we are going to kick it back into real time now for the final assembly.
Okay, so I've left maybe about a 1-inch opening right here. It looks really good. I'm super happy with it. And what I like to use to fill my Biscornu is some unscented ground shells. It gives a nice weight to the Biscornu. So I like to make sure I have a funnel. I actually picked this one up at the Target dollar spot, but I have some kitchen funnels I've used in the past too, just whatever. But something with a nice little tip here. You can put this, I think you can put it in dry beans or something to hold it still. I will be honest, I don't. But if you think you need help, holding it while you're working, I would definitely recommend that. Or just some sort of container of some sort. I don't even think I have anything close that I could use for that. And I'm going to empty out this bag first. I know I'm going to need more than that. Oh, I didn't even get all of those. Here's what we're going to do, because I know I'm going to use them up. That'll make it easier to get them out. All right. And I'm just letting my needle and thread dangle. I didn't actually end up having to restart, which is tie off and start another. I had plenty, so that was good. And you want to fill this pretty firm. And because this was stitched on 32, it's going to be a pretty good size. It's going to take quite a bit of your walnut shells or polyfill or poly pellets or lizard litter, whatever. Your filling of choice. I just like these ground walnut shells. And actually, I do need to grab a bowl or a tray. One moment. All right, I went and grabbed a bowl from my kitchen. So see, something like this is really convenient, and then it's going to catch anything that spills. So let me pop this corner, try to keep it. And you can see it's getting full, but see how this is still, we want to fill all of those nooks and crannies. So this is going to take quite a lot. I'll show you probably half this bag and like the little bit that was left in my other bag, at least. And I'm just kind of using the tip of my funnel to kind of help move this around. You might want to grab a chopstick or something similar. Okay, honestly, I think I have it filled perfect. Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm going to set it in this little bowl like this. It does help if you have a bowl. I know I said it doesn't matter. It is because I've done it both ways, but this little bowl I have is perfect, this little dipping bowl. So if you have a little bowl like this, or a little tray of some sort, you might want to grab it because it is handy. Okay, now that it's full, you're going to want to, again, just take your time grabbing those stitches. Because we're going to shut it now. And there is just a tiny little dip here, but I think that's okay because I do want to sew a button in the center of mine. So a little bit of leeway is going to be fine for this. I still think it's going to be nice and secure. Let's get this pulled out. Folded it in a little too much. Make it a little easier. There we go. Now we should be able to stitch this up. Just like so. Now you can adorn them with buttons if you want to. You don't have to. I am going to just because I think they're kind of cute and fun. I'm also going to add decorative pins to mine. It's a great way to display pens. They make great pen cushions. And they also make great tiered tray displays, dough bowl, fillers. They look cute set on shelves and mantles. I just really love them because I feel like they are the perfect little, let me see here. And I think for the first time I'm going to have to rip out a stitch. I made it all the way around. That's okay. I'm going to snip off some of that frayed end. But I made it almost all the way around. Okay. There we go. It can get a little tricky, but just take your time. Okay. And that is it. So now that we are here, before I close it up, I'm just going to kind of squish it out, and that's perfect. See how I'm able to make that little divot with my thumb? That's how we're going to sew our button in. Really just the perfect little bit. Okay, I'm going to still use my bowl here, and we need to knot this. Okay, so now I'm kind of just going, this is our first stitch. I'm going to come back through these, and I've left a little loop here. I'm going to go through it once. I'm going to go through it twice, and we're going to pull tight, and that knots it. And then I'm going to go through, I'm going to take my needle right through that seam allowance and push through to the back, and we're going to pull our knot into the seam allowance like so. And on the back, we're going to snip it, and we've hidden that down inside. So, Biscornu is finished. Now let's sew a button on. Okay. So, now I want to sew on a button, and I was just playing with a couple. I think we're going to use the orange. I like the blue, but I think the orange is a little showier, plus this is my fall Biscornu. I think it kind of just pulls the orange all in, so we're going to use orange. I'm actually going to use this upholstery thread. It is really nice and strong. So I'm going to go ahead and thread up my needle. See, great little pin cushion. And I'm just going to knot this end. Like so. Okay, it's really strong. It's not going to break, at least not easily, which is definitely what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm actually going to go down through, I really needed a longer needle, huh? Okay, a long needle would be super handy here. I don't have one, so I'm going to make this work. I can see my needle poking through the bottom. I'm just going to use my pliers to pull that back through. Okay. And let me just snip the ends here, because I'm going to try to hide my knot here in the top under the button. That's what we're going to try to do. All right, so I've come, and now we need to come back through this center, and we want to go as straight as possible. I don't want to lose my needle in here. That's why I'm saying a long needle would be fantastic, but I don't have one, and I'm going to make it work. I'm all about making things work. All right, we are going to go up, bring that up through the button, and then we're going to go straight back down. And I'm trying to get it as close to where I was as possible, but this is the bottom of the Biscornu, so I'm okay if it's not perfect, which you can see it's not going to be. And I'm going to give it a nice little tuck. See how it makes that nice little divot? I love it. So now, well, I came up right at the same spot, which is what I want. Okay. So I'm just going to come up again. I see my button is twisted, so now I can fix that. Just want to do 2 times through here. And see how I've lined up my button kind of with the design of the Biscornu? That is on purpose. I'm going to push straight and it's coming right through now. Perfect. And I am going to knot it right here in the bottom. I think if it'll let me. So I knotted it and I just pulled it nice and tight right there. So you will have like a little bit of thread obviously in the bottom, but that's fine. That's a flaw in the linen. I'm glad that's on the bottom. And there you go. Our Biscornu is complete. We can stick some fun pins in it. We can do a stack of Biscornus, which is definitely what I want to do here. I'm glad that I picked one of these motifs. It's the exact same stitch as this, but I only stitched the 4 corners because that's all you're going to see because it dips down. So I just stitched enough that when you're looking at it from the side, like if it's sitting on a shelf, you see a little bit of the design. I pulled the blue from the center. The light blue was only used in the center, so that's the one I used for these, and I love it. And there you go. So let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below, and I hope you love making a Biscornu.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new Flosstube stitching or quilting video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.